Okay, everybody, I'm going to get started. I'm expecting more people to join us as we go along, but I think I don't want to hold you up any longer than necessary. So welcome to the information session on the Education Doctorate at Rutgers. This is the first time I've used this format of the GoToMeeting for this type of a presentation. So I'm hoping this is going to work out for everybody. If you can't hear me, I guess you can't tell me. But I'm assuming people can hear me because I've started getting some questions. I'm going to leave you muted because otherwise all your mics will make a tremendous amount of noise while I present. If you have a question, as I said earlier, please feel free to type it into the chat box. And when I'm done with my presentation, I'll answer all the questions that have been typed in. Feel free to add them in at any time. So let's get started. I have to figure out how to advance my screen. Sorry, hang on. Okay, here's the agenda for what we're going to discuss tonight. First of all, the purpose and goals of the Education Doctorate at Rutgers. Second of all, the program components that make up the program. Next, I'll talk about the ways in which the program is designed to be a collaborative experience. And then I'll talk about the application process. And then, as I said, we'll end up with questions. Okay, first thing you need to know is that Rutgers has had an Education Doctorate for many, many years. But in 2010, it relaunched a brand newly designed program because Rutgers is part of the Carnegie Program for the Education Doctorate, which is a national initiative of universities around the country who are working collaboratively to improve the quality of doctoral education. Originally, there were 26 universities in this consortium, and now it's close to 60. Being part of this consortium has been extremely important to our thinking about the design of the program, and it's just important for you to know that we're part of a national initiative that's really on the cutting edge of doctoral education in education. Many people ask, what's the difference between a PhD and an EdD? And this, in fact, is one of the reasons that the Carnegie Project on the Education Doctorate got started in the first place, was to make a clearer distinction between the PhD and the EdD. Because historically many universities either had a PhD or an EdD or maybe both, in many cases the EdD functioned very much as a PhD and the distinctions really became very blurred. At this point, we're working very hard to make a really clear distinction, and I've created this table for you to kind of get a sense of what the difference is. It's a very common question to ask, what's the difference between a PhD and an EdD? So here we go. First of all, the purpose. For the PhD, the purpose is really to prepare people to become researchers, for whom research will be their primary task in their jobs. Whether they work in a university, it would mean they would typically go to a university that emphasizes research, or working in a consulting firm, a think tank, an educational testing service kind of place, where your main job is to be a researcher. So the program's purpose is to train you to be ready for those kinds of jobs. For the EdD, the purpose is to prepare educational leaders to be able to use research to lead change efforts. So both programs have an emphasis on, both programs have research in them. The PhD has an emphasis on research. The EdD has an emphasis on preparing people to be able to use research to make decisions and to guide change efforts to improve educational outcomes for learners. In terms of research methods, or the study of research methods in the program, in the PhD program, you have a somewhat bigger research requirement, and learn to use a greater variety of methods. In the EdD program, you're really focused on research that's very aimed at understanding how to solve an educational problem. Typically, you might use what's called action research or program evaluation. Action research would really be understanding what a problem is, deciding what you're going to do to try to solve the problem, and then testing out whether or not it has indeed helped you address the problem. Program evaluation would be similar in that you might want to know how something you tried or that has been tried is actually working. In terms of program content in the PhD, the focus is on theory and methods and deep analysis or deep knowledge of a content area. In the EdD program, the content really focuses on practice, on day-to-day practice of people working in the field. The program length of a PhD program is typically 5 to 7 years going full-time. The EdD program is designed to be completed in 3 years plus a summer and maybe a month or two. So we're going to call it 3.5 years. It is designed for working professionals, and although over the course of the year you take as many credits as a full-time PhD student, it's spread out over 12 months instead of over 8 months. In the PhD program, it is not set up as a cohort program. Students move through the program individually or by happenstance in small groups. In the EdD program, it's set up as a cohort-based program, meaning that students enter the program, a group of students enter the program at the same time. Our cohorts are between 25 and 30, and they progress through the program, taking classes at the same rate, taking required courses at the same time. I'll talk more about the cohort when I talk about how the program builds community later. Summers. In the PhD program, you have few opportunities to take courses. You might be working on a research project, but in the summer, in the EdD program, you are taking 3 courses. You take 9 credits in the summer each year of the program. A successful student in the PhD program, ultimately we would hope would be conducting research in a major university. In the EdD program, a successful student would be leading change and reforming practice to improve outcomes where they work. Okay, we have 4 concentrations in our program, and a lot of people have questions about which concentration they should go into. For some people it's pretty obvious, but for others it might be a little harder to know. If you're interested in early childhood or elementary education, and any of the content areas, any of the instructional content areas, you might consider either the teacher leadership concentration or the design of learning environments concentration. And I'll talk a bit more about each of the concentrations in a bit. If you're interested in social studies education, still would recommend either of those 2 concentrations, but also possibly the education, culture, and society concentration. If you're interested in issues of social justice, educational equity, and multiculturalism, it doesn't mean you would not fit into any of these other concentrations I've already mentioned, but the education, culture, and society concentration specifically focuses on those issues. If you're interested in educational administration and K through 12, you should take the educational leadership concentration. If you're interested in higher education, most of our students go into either the design of learning environments concentration or the education, culture, and society. If you're interested in math education specifically, you could do the teacher leadership concentration, or you could do the math education EdD, which is a completely separate program and is not covered by the presentation tonight. Okay, we have a number of guiding principles in the EdD, and I'm just going to run through these. The EdD reflects challenges of practice. We are extremely interested and committed to keeping the program practice-based and to being engaged with the challenges of the day-to-day challenges of practice in the field of education. These are all kind of related. We believe the program should apply directly to solving problems in complex educational systems. It should promote collaborative problem solving, not only while you're in the program, but once you leave. One of the reasons we do a lot of collaborative work in the program is because we want to place an emphasis on gaining experience working with others to solve problems. It develops multidisciplinary perspectives. One of the reasons that there is a pretty intense core set of courses that everybody takes is because we believe there are multidisciplinary sets of knowledge and skills that everybody needs, regardless of your specific educational context or interests or commitments, and the courses are across disciplines. I'll talk more about the core courses in a minute. Although the PhD is research intensive, the EdD also focuses on research, but we focus on helping students to use research to interpret and apply rather than to develop basic foundational knowledge. And the program should stimulate inquiry, the posing of questions about what's going on here. Why does this work that way and not another way? What can we do to solve this problem? It also is designed to maximize your efficiency and accessibility going through the program. And by that we mean we try to take some of the burden of being a student, some of the administrative burden of being a student off of your shoulders by doing things like arranging parking for you. You still have to find your own parking place, but we'll get your parking pass for you. Arranging registration. We'll get you registered. We provide meals for you in the summer when you have to come a lot. We provide dinner. So we do as much as we can to try to just let you focus on the academic part of being in the program. Our goals, should not be surprising to you at this point after what I've said so far, is to create scholarly practitioners or scholarly educational leaders who can understand change by naming and framing a problem around which change needs to happen, by having a sense of a range of different change strategies that can be deployed to address a problem of practice, and who can understand the broader social context within which change needs to happen, and I might say also to understand the broader social context that influences whatever problems you're naming and framing in your context. We strive to help scholarly leaders develop who can work with others to enact improvements. I've talked a lot about that already, and what that would mean specifically would be to work within your workplace, with parents, within the community, to leverage resources in the business sector, or whatever is going to be relevant to the kind of change effort that you're engaged in. And that you have the skills to use research, to use inquiry to solve problems of practice, to be able to identify research that exists that can help you, and also to do research and to analyze and interpret research that can help you solve problems of practice. We also aim to give you more knowledge about teaching and learning, because you need to have not just a process to deploy, but actual knowledge to bring to bear to that process. And we believe that scholarly or leaders or practitioners should be able to advocate for the educational community in which they work, to really become catalysts for change. Okay, I'm going to talk a bit about how the program is structured. The program has three components. The core of the program is a set of required courses that encompasses knowledge and skills with regard to what we expect all leaders to know and be able to do. The second major component of and I'm going to come back and talk about each of these in a bit more depth. The second component of the program is the concentration courses. As you see, actually there's 5 concentrations listed here. We no longer have a special education concentration. I'm sorry, I forgot to take that out. We have the 4 concentrations I already mentioned when I talked about which concentration you might go into. And the third component is the dissertation. These 3 components are equally weighted in terms of the number of credits that they encompass in the program. So let me talk about each one in a little bit more detail. So the Common Core are the courses that everybody in the cohort takes, and you take them together at the same time. The concentrations are interdisciplinary, the dissertation, Those three aspects of the program I've already talked about. Another component is that we are working hard to make the program student-centered in terms of how we administer the program and how we advise. We're trying very hard to make this really responsive to students because the program is still relatively new. Our first cohort is at the dissertation phase now. We're still working on honing our capacity to be as student-centered as possible. It's a big culture shift for us, but we're working very hard at it. And the next design component is the cohort model, which I've already mentioned. Okay, I'm going to talk about the core now. So the core is 24 credits. It's 1/3 of the number of credits in the program. As I said, they're all equally weighted. There are 4 strands to the core. Each of these sort of encompass a conceptual lens with which we hope learners, especially the first 3, with which we hope learners will use as a way to view their other coursework. We feel this is sort of foundational in terms of giving people a perspective to understand educational issues, educational problems, educational contexts, and so forth. As you see, the first is leadership, organizations, and change. The second is the social contexts of education. The third is learners and learning. And the fourth strand is inquiry, which is our research methods courses. In the leadership and organizational change strand, you focus on knowledge and information about facilitating change at the systems, organizational, classroom, and individual levels. Social context, students learn to critically analyze the factors, especially historical and sociological. We have kind of a long list there, but I can tell you that that's really the emphasis of the core courses in social context is historical and sociological that are at play in terms of educational theory, policy, and practice. In learners and learning, the idea of these courses is to update or enrich your knowledge base about learning, including contexts and technologies that mediate learning, and we focus both on children and on adults. And inquiry exposes students to research tools they can use and helps them develop a deeper understanding of program evaluation in particular. The core, as I said, is 24 credits. You have 2 classes in each of these strands. Okay, now to talk about the concentrations. First, the design of learning environments concentration. The goals of the concentration are to focus on the science of designing learning environments and to learn about the principles, frameworks, and theories that undergird design, and to learn how to understand, to learn how to do design-based research, which really means to design, to study, to refine, to engage in sort of an ongoing cycle of design, research, and refinement. Intended audience for this concentration, people who work in non-school settings, could be school settings as well, but this concentration in particular, along with education, culture, and society, are really designed for non-K-12 people, as opposed to the other 2 concentrations, which are going to be, we assume, much more attractive to K-12 people. So people who work in museums, extension educators, informal learning environments, corporate trainers, as well as people working in K-12 like curriculum development, curriculum developers, and so forth, education software designers, and those who have a particular emphasis on design in their jobs. The educational leadership concentration focuses on further education for certified, as in principals and superintendents, certified individuals, although it is not assumed that you are necessarily already serving as an administrator. But having certification as an administrator is generally a requirement for this concentration. And the coursework is really sort of advanced administrative. The concentration coursework is sort of advanced educational leadership courses beyond the master's. The intended audience is future and current school and District P through 12 administrators. Education, Culture, and Society concentration. The goal is to offer systematic and rigorous study of theoretical and practical issues related to social and educational equity, change, and reform. The intended audience is very broad. Anyone working in education who's interested in issues of equity, social justice, multiculturalism, and so forth. Teacher leadership. The goal is to develop knowledge and skills related to teacher learning and change, professional development, teacher education, and strategies for instructional improvement, particularly teacher-led instructional improvement, professional. We also have people who are professional developers in the program, as well as some principals and other educational building leaders who are really interested in their role as instructional leaders. So as you'll see, I think that's congruent with what I'm saying about the intended audience. In particular, people who are interested in becoming teacher educators in colleges or universities, people who are responsible for professional development in educational settings, principals and other building leaders who want to know more about professional development, and current and future leaders, teacher leaders, excuse me. I should say also, if you're interested in getting more specific information on each of the concentrations, for example, what kind of course taking requirements there are within the concentration, if you look on the EdD webpage on the Graduate School of Education site, you can click on a sheet that will show you the actual course requirements for each of those concentrations. Some of them have more requirements than others, and some are pretty open-ended. The most open-ended is Education, Culture, and Society, and probably the one with the most requirements is Educational Leadership. Okay, to talk about the dissertation now. Again, this is 24 credits and is the last third of the program. The dissertation is a culminating 12 to 15-month experience, so you spend your last year and then some working on your dissertation. It's about 2 years of coursework, and then the rest is dissertation. The dissertation really requires students to identify and investigate a problem of practice, meaning we want you to do a dissertation that really focuses on understanding better or solving a practical problem in your work site, systematically using both current research and systematic inquiry methods. And it involves writing a final report like any dissertation, although we do see this dissertation as distinctly different from the PhD because of its focus on practice. Students have the option of working on their dissertation projects in groups organized around key topics of interest. It is an option, but it's a very strong recommendation that you go through with a group. And we do place everyone in a group organized around a common theme, a common topic, a common population, a common approach to research study, so that the strength of the cohort design carries through into the dissertation process. I think a lot of people have an image of the dissertation being a very lonely time when a lot of people get lost and never quite finish. Well, our goal in this program is to make sure that you have the support and the structure to help you finish right on time. And so far, our first cohort is doing really well with that. But part of making that possible is being with a group, and that seems to be a very strong piece of what makes it all work. Okay, the typical schedule for our program, because it is a cohort-based program, we have a really set way in which you need to march through this program if you're going to finish on time. So the program starts in the summer, and it's very important for me to tell you that university summer does not start at the same time as K-12 summer. Rutgers summer session starts the day after Memorial Day. So summer session 1 begins before school is out if you work in a school. You take 9 credits each summer, and summer 1 and summer 2 are particularly intensive. You take 3 classes, 1 class at a time. A class lasts for 3 weeks. During those 3 weeks, you come 4 nights a week from 5 to 8:30. Monday through Thursday. You're off from Friday Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You do that routine for 3 weeks. As I said, we do provide dinner every night during those 3 weeks, which is included as part of your student fee. And then you have a week off. And then you do the next 3 weeks, and then you have a week off, and then you do 3 more weeks, and then you're done for the summer. It is intensive. You do have generally a couple of weeks at the end of the summer before you go back to school if you're on a 9 or 10 month contract. If you work full-time all summer long, you can do this program anyway. We have really a mix of students in our program of people who are and are not working during the summer. The summer program is designed to enable you to do it whether you're working or not. Obviously, it's easier if you're not working, but it's feasible if you are. But the caveat is you have to be able to get to Rutgers by 5 o'clock. The second summer continues in the same way, and I'll talk about the third summer in a minute. During the fall and spring semesters, you take 2 classes each semester. Those meet on a generally pretty traditional 15-week schedule once a week. So when you're taking 2 classes, you have to come to Rutgers twice a week. During the year, classes are from 4:50 until 7:30. They're a little shorter because you have more meetings. They're the same amount of seat time, but less time at each meeting. After the fall 2, which is not on this diagram, and it should be, you participate in the qualifying process, which is a process demonstrating that you are qualified to move forward into your dissertation in the semester after that. Our second year students, our students who started in 2011, just received their qualifying questions. You get them December 1st, and they're due the day after Martin Luther King Day. So you get them at the beginning of December, just as you're trying to finish up your semester. We expect everyone to finish their semester before they start working on their qualifying process. And then you have over winter break and into January to complete 2 papers, both 12 to 15 pages long. And I can tell you, again, we know that it can be done because our first cohort has done it. Our second cohort is about to. So fall and spring proceed. You can see that the program is laid out, so you're doing a combination. You do all core courses the first summer, and then you do a combination of core and concentration courses from there on out until the core is completed in the fall and the second fall, and then you have just concentration courses left. In your third summer, you start on the dissertation process. At that point, you begin to meet in your dissertation group with your dissertation chair. Those meetings become by arrangement with the group. Groups usually meet about every 2 weeks. So in that third summer, once you finish your concentration classes, you go to a much different kind of schedule where mostly you're working on your dissertation proposal at home at your computer, and you meet for a couple of hours every couple of weeks. So the schedule does kind of ease up in terms of commuting in the third summer. So you really have just 2 summers of very intense commuting and very intense coursework. In the third summer, it's very intense work on your dissertation proposal. So don't get me wrong, it's still intense. The whole program is pretty intense because that's what it takes to get through it in 3.5 years. In fall 3, spring 3, and summer 4, you are working on your dissertation. Typically, you would defend your dissertation proposal, meaning you would bring it to your committee for approval in early fall of fall 3, and then begin collecting data for your dissertation into the, through the fall and into the early part of spring semester, at which point you would move into intensive data analysis and begin writing. By the summer, we hope that most people have most of a good chunk of the writing done, and we'll be working on revision so that dissertations can be defended, which again means you come before your committee and they question you and they make suggestions, they give you feedback, and we would hope that that would happen very early fall after the summer. So that's the typical schedule. I imagine there's a number of questions about that, but I will get to that. It sounds like a few people have joined us as I've been presenting. Just so you know, I'll take questions at the end. I've alluded a lot to the cohort model and to the fact that we have tried to create an experience that's very collaborative in terms of the learning opportunities that you have. And we do this in a number of ways. First of all, by scheduling the courses so that you participate as a cohort, by designing group activities in many of your classes, and by having special events every year. In particular, we have a kickoff event in early May for newly admitted students as well as our continuing students. And the kickoff is really an orientation for the new students and a kickoff to the new year for the continuing students. And there's some activities that we do all together and some activities that are by cohort. We also do a retreat in the spring, usually in March. This is both a skill building opportunity. We do some workshops, some things that maybe don't get covered specifically in courses. We have speakers, we do some community building activities, and so forth. It's on a Saturday, as is the kickoff. And then we sometimes do social events. And finally, the dissertation group is a key part of the collaborative experience. Okay, the application process. I'm almost done here. Applications are due February 1st. Applications are done electronically. It's 100% electronic. You go to that website and it will walk you through the process. Just so you know, you can work on bits and pieces of your application and not submit everything all at once. So you can start your application process now and build onto it as you go. Admissions requirements. You must have a master's degree to be admitted into the program. It does not have to be a master's degree in anything specific, although we would be looking for something that would contribute to the knowledge base that you would bring into the program. You must take your GREs. They must be taken within 5 years. A lot of people ask me, is there a cutoff for the GRE scores? There is not a cutoff. We're looking for evidence that you'll be able to succeed in the program. We're starting to get a sense of the relationship between GRE scores and success in the qualifying process, which is sort of our most important not gatekeeping aspect of the program, but our most important sort of quantitative measure of how people are doing in the program. And that might inform our decisions for the admissions process this year to some extent. But we really do look at the total package of what you bring to the program, both in terms of your experience, your GRE scores, your writing skills. We do look at your personal statement, not just in terms of what you say, but how you say it. I guess I'll bring that up too. I'll bring everything up. So your experiences, your personal statement, your GRE scores. We're looking to see that you're a fit for the program and, importantly, that the program is a fit for you. Because it's such an intensive program and because we want people to go through the cohort, we really want to make sure it's right for you, just like we want to try to hope that you're right for us. We also need 3 letters of recommendation. If you've been in graduate school recently enough, we suggest you try to get a recommendation from someone who knows your academic potential, and at least 1 letter from someone who can speak to your leadership skills or your leadership potential. If it's been a long time since you've been in graduate school, it's not a deal breaker if you don't have someone who was an instructor write a recommendation, but it's a good thing to do if you can. You'll need to submit your transcripts, both undergraduate and your master's, and a personal statement. These are the kinds of things that we ask to write. If you have further questions, you can contact me. My contact information is on the EdD webpage, but I believe you can also write to this email address. I would recommend highly that you write directly to me because, to be honest, I'm not exactly sure where these emails go. So if you need it, write to me. I'm more than happy to meet with you if you have specific questions that I don't answer tonight. I also reply to emails as quickly as I possibly can. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to take questions, and I think I have to close the big screen version of the PowerPoint so that I can see what's happening in the GoToMeeting chat box. So let me open that up and take questions. And I'm just going to read them out loud so you know where I'm at. From Courtney. Does this program provide any type of administrator certification, for example, principal certification? It's a great question, and the answer is no. This program is not a certification program, it's a doctoral program. They're really very separate. I guess that's the answer is no, there is no certification associated with this degree. Alexis asks, if you are currently in the supervisor endorsement program, will any of those credits count towards a doctorate? In some of the concentrations, they are accepting either 1 or 2 supervisory endorsement courses as electives. It depends which concentration. I believe special ed is taking 1 or 2, and teacher leadership is taking 1 or 2. I'm not sure if it's 1 or 2. I'm not being loose there. While I'm on that topic, people ask about transfer credits. I don't know if someone else further down the line has asked this, but I'll answer the question anticipating it. You can transfer in credits from your master's degree into the program. In the core courses, those are the required courses that everyone takes in Learners and Learning, Broad Context of Education, Inquiry, and Leadership. In the core courses, you can transfer in up to 1 course in each of the 3 strands, not including inquiry. You cannot transfer in research methods courses to replace the 2 inquiry courses because they were specifically designed to fit the needs of the program. So you can transfer in up to 3 courses in the core, and you can transfer in courses in the concentration depending on what you bring in. We don't evaluate transcripts ahead of time. After you're accepted, we do a mass transfer credit evaluation meeting where we look at everyone we've accepted into the program and go through the transfers. Typically, if you have a master's degree in leadership, you'll get transferred out of 1 of the core courses in leadership and at least 1 of the concentration, not 1 of the concentration requirements, but you can count that towards electives. If you're in teacher leadership, you typically get at least 1 concentration elective. If you're in education, culture, and society and you have relevant coursework, again, you'll get a transfer credit. In design of learning environments, it would be unusual to get transfer credit in any of the required concentration courses, but you may get some transfer credit in an elective in the concentration. Okay, I'm going to go down to the next question. A question came in, could I make the slides available after the orientation? Absolutely. People who came to the open house face-to-face got paper copies, and as I was going through the presentation, I thought, oh, you guys aren't getting that. So if you shoot me an email, and I'll put my email address in the chat box, I will send you the presentation. I'm putting my email in right now. Okay. Next question from SA. Are classes on specific days during the fall and spring semester? The core courses, no. The answer is no. There are too many different options for when classes could fall. Core courses everyone has together, but concentration classes can be all over the place. The one thing I can tell you is they aren't on Fridays, and that's about all I can tell you. They are not on specific days. Alexis asks, are any classes available online? Yes and no. There are some elective classes that are 100% online. The Graduate School of Education currently has a certificate program in educational technology. It's a 3 or 4 course, I'm sorry, I don't have all my facts straight. I think it's 3 course sequence, 12 credits, might be 16. Sorry about my phone. And those classes can be taken as electives in many of the concentrations. They are 100% online. None of the required classes in the program are 100% online, but many of the instructors are doing some combination of face-to-face meetings and online meetings within their classes. Depends a lot on the instructor, but a lot of instructors are doing at least some online so that you don't have to come every week for 15 weeks during the year. I think a little less in the summer because the classes are so quick. They feel like I think they need as much face-to-face time as they can get. Next question from SA. Are fellowships offered? We do not have fellowships in the EdD program. You are entitled to apply for GSC scholarships. They're very competitive and they're not very large. The funding that we have for graduate students in the GSE tend to go to the PhD students because we're trying to attract full-time students to the program. There are sometimes teaching opportunities. They don't cover tuition, but they pay $4,500 per course if you are interested in teaching a course. It can be really tough, though, to teach on top of doing the program. So unless you're not working, it's pretty tough. So sorry to say the funding is not very good for this program. Okay, another question from SA. Thanks for all your great questions. What does professional development look like? Are students invited to attend conferences and co-present? And what about publication and writing opportunities? So I'm not totally clear about the question, what does professional development look like? I guess in terms of developing your skills to be change leaders. I mean, the whole program is professional development in a sense, in that we're trying to give you the skills and knowledge to lead change. Are students invited to attend conferences and co-present, and what about publication and writing opportunities? I would say a little less than in the PhD program. In the PhD program, we're really trying to train people to be able to get out there and present research in scholarly settings. In this program, we're really trying to train people to be able to do presentations, to be able to write things that are very much for not an academic audience, but a professional audience, whether it's in your school board, the community, a board of directors, and so forth. So you'll have projects assigned where you actually learn how to do, say, a policy brief that might be submitted to a school board, or a presentation on an evaluation that you might do for the director of curriculum or a curriculum and instruction committee or your school board and so forth. So it's a little bit different than the model for a PhD where you might go off to academic conferences with your advisor. But a lot of the coursework does encourage you to use some of the same skills, but much more in a sort of practice-based setting. Question from Yan Yan. Does dissertation require a teaching job to carry out projects? It doesn't require a teaching job, but because we want students to be doing work that's very grounded in real-life problems of practice, we would like you to do a dissertation project that is really problem-focused, practice-focused, and not sort of posing broad general questions or theoretical questions or very esoteric questions. So we would expect you to do a study that's very grounded in the day-to-day realities of practice. So if you're not working, you would need to find a site to do your research, and we would also strongly encourage you to get involved in experiences during your doctoral work which would enable you to identify an authentic problem of practice that is being experienced in an educational setting. If it's not your personal problem, that it's a problem of practice that's been identified in a context that you're interested in. Private question came in, why math education is a different program. That's sort of a historical artifact of, I don't know if you were here from the beginning, but the EdD program was redesigned in 2010 to be a school-wide program, to be interdisciplinary, and to focus on change leadership. The math education faculty chose not to join into this effort. They were really happy with how their program was working and didn't want to change it. So they've stuck with the traditional model. If you're a math educator, it does not mean that, let me rephrase that. If you're a math educator, you can be in this program. And it's a perfect fit if you want to be in teacher leadership or any of the other concentrations. But you should know that there is another specific option for a math education doctoral program if you're very interested in really drilling deep in the content of math education, as opposed to being a math educator who's leading change around math instruction in your context. Okay, Crystal asks, are any classes offered on ACC campus in Atlantic County? I'm sorry, no. Our classes are all either at either right on the New Brunswick campus or pretty close by. So no other campuses are being used. That's all the questions that have been posed. I'm going to just leave this open for a few more minutes in case you've been too busy listening to type a question. I've completed my presentation. I put my email address there. If you'd like the PowerPoint presentation, you can shoot me an email, and I'm really going to be here for maybe, well, as long as, if anyone types any more questions, I'll be here, but I'll wait a few minutes to see if any more questions emerge. So thanks for coming, and I look forward to hearing from you, and feel free to type any more questions, and if not, have a good evening. Okay, someone at SA asked, can you talk about the group dissertation process? I was not too clear about that. Yes, I'd be happy to. So everybody in the group writes their own dissertation. The point of the group is a couple of things. One is we hope for synergy amongst the students. So if we put people together who have similar topics, it means that they can share resources, they can share ideas, they really know each other's settings, they know a lot about what they're doing, and so they can really be of help to each other. The other reason the group process is really helpful is everyone has the same chair, which means the chair can meet with everybody in the group at the same time, as well as individually, but at the same time it means that everybody's hearing the same thing from the chair at the same time, and can continue to do work with each other in between meetings with the chair because they're all kind of on the same page. I'm working with a dissertation group now, and also we do a lot with peer feedback. So before drafts come to me, I ask that each person get feedback from someone else in the group, and work on improving their draft as much as possible from the feedback they get from their peer before it comes to me. So it means that I can work more efficiently with the group. So does that answer your question? If not, you can shoot me another one. Great. SA says, yes, it answers the question. Any other questions? Is it possible to start in the fall? It is not possible to start, well, let me rephrase that. You can't start as a matriculated student in the fall. The program starts in the summer, and because it's a cohort design, you have to be available to start the classes when the cohort starts. If you can't start this summer, but you want to start next summer, you do have the option to take some classes in the fall and the spring next year, or even this coming spring, as a non-matriculated student. You can take 1 class, 2 classes before you start in the program, and those classes will transfer in. However, you should confer with me about what to take to make sure that it will be a class that can transfer in. But this program is designed as a cohort program, and we feel that that's a great strength of the program. Our students give us that feedback as well. And so you really need to enter the program with the intent of staying with the cohort. But I will also say that should something happen during the course of your participation in the program and you need to slow down or stop out for a while, you can do that and still come back to the program. So if you start and you need to slow down or stop for a while, it doesn't mean you've lost everything. We'll work it out with you to work at a pace that you can and to sort of join in with another cohort if you've slowed down enough that you need to rejoin with the next group, which we've had happen with a number of people who've gotten pregnant and had babies or have had other health issues along the way. Any other questions? I'm here if anything else comes up. Okay, Diana just asked if I could give some ideas about dissertations of past students. And yes, I can. I can talk most specifically about the students I'm advising who are all in the teacher leadership concentration, and I can kind of try to depend on my memory on other people's. In the teacher leadership concentration, the group, almost everyone is doing studies related in some way to professional development. Two people who are in the same school district, one in a high school and one in an elementary school, are trying interventions around improving their induction and mentoring program for new teachers. Someone else is working on transforming the professional learning community in her school from what started off as kind of just sort of business discussion and not really doing what PLCs should do into a much more data-driven, substantive conversation about teaching and learning. So she's working on transforming their PLC and studying what happens as a result. Another person who is a principal is working on, his study has more to do with the new teacher evaluation programs coming into the school. In his district, the principals are required to do walkthroughs on a very frequent basis in their teachers' classrooms, and he's developing a real structure to make those walkthroughs useful and studying how teachers use the feedback they get from the walkthroughs and so forth. Let's see. Another teacher is studying the implementation of a research professional development design, research-based professional development design in her school to help support the implementation of a new initiative that the teachers in her program have to implement. Another person in my group who's sort of an outlier, not doing professional development, is offering an after-school reading club for boys in his middle school who and studying sort of how engagement in the book club compares and contrasts to the boys' experience of language arts in the school. To give you an idea of some other dissertations in other groups, let me think. We have a high school counselor who's studying an intervention that he developed in his school actually over a couple of years ago to encourage students to go to college in a high school where students don't typically go. And now his study is doing follow-up on students who've gone to college. I have a higher ed student who developed an online course for, she works in study abroad, and she developed an online course for students coming to Rutgers from abroad and for students going abroad from Rutgers to increase their understanding of what it means to go into a new culture. We have school administrators studying bullying, the new bullying regulations, and so forth. So lots of things that are very focused on teaching and learning, either at the kid level or at the adult teacher colleague level. Anything else? I think there's only 4 of you left, and I don't see any questions popping up. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to sign off. I think everyone's about done. Thank you again for joining us, and write me if you have further questions.